Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars are atop the AFC South. Yes, I repeat, the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-1 are atop the AFC South. Now, I'm going to bring on someone that is very familiar with the Jacksonville Jaguars from their inception to now. Of course, she doesn't live there now. She covers the Washington Commanders and the Washington Wizards, but she still is very familiar with the Jacksonville Jaguars. She's Duval's own, Miss Carita Parks. What's going on?
Hey. Home is where the heart is. Home is where the heart is.
Now I didn't give you the rundown. Let me give folks the rundown. You do cover the Washington Commanders for a 3-point conversion, correct?
I do.
Okay, and then also for your own brand, Double Take Sports, you cover the Wizards, and you also cover the
Mystics.
I'm forgetting names. Mystics. Thank you.
Yep.
Good gracious, I'm over here forgetting names, but definitely. You could say you got DC sports on lock right now.
I was just about to say, so far I got DC sports on lock, and I'm loving it. Can't even complain.
There we go. Now, of course, we are going to talk about your hometown, Jacksonville Jaguars, but that's going to be just a little later. Up first, we got to talk about the team you covered, the Washington Commanders. Now, they're 1-2 right now. And, of course, they're coming off a game where they gave up 9 sacks to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, can we say that's, because Carson Wentz does have a propensity to hold the football. So can we say that's more on Carson Wentz, or do you think that was more of the offensive line just falling apart to the Eagles?
I think it's a combination, to be honest. I think the offensive line is not holding up against opposing teams' defenses. They just lost their center, Chase Roulier, so that was definitely a hit to the offensive line. But Carson, he's not getting the ball out of his hands quick enough as well. So it's a little bit of a combination of both. Like I said, the offensive line is just not holding up. And Carson has acknowledged that he does need to get the ball out faster. So maybe it's also a little bit of play calling too. Like, are they calling short passes? Yes, he should be making some decisions on his own out there in the moment. But I do question the play calling as well and the lack of adjustments when the offense isn't producing.
Right. Just sounds like a whole bunch going on. But I will say this though. Carson does. I will give him credit. He's 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions so far. So he isn't necessarily throwing the ball to the other team as much at a rate that he did when he was playing hero ball. But
right. I mean, so far the biggest issue has been the sacks. I mean, before the 9 sacks, it was 6 sacks against the Lions. So that's got to be cleaned up. But for the most part, he definitely has his moments where he's inaccurate or he's had, like you said, an interception or so. But overall, it hasn't been a catastrophe.
Gotcha. Now, what has been a catastrophe is he's throwing the ball 40-plus times. He's throwing that 3 straight games. I've got to ask, is that game planning for him to throw it like that, or are they just not invested in the running game? I've got to ask that question.
Well, it's interesting because they do have Antonio Gibson, who was their running back last season, although during preseason, it looked like Brian Robinson was going to come for the number 1 spot until he was unfortunately shot. Glad he's okay. But they still have the running back that they've had for the past 2 seasons. There's also J.D. McKissick back there. So the running game is possible. But for whatever reason, and I do think some of it, to your point, is play calling and game planning, they are having him take a lot of shots down the field. Like I said, that goes back to, in my opinion, to the lack of adjustments. If you're seeing that throwing the ball down the field isn't working, then why don't you rely on the running game a little more? Mix it up, have a more balanced attack. So I do also think some of it's coaching.
Gotcha. It sounds like a lot's going on with that offense, and it sounds like a lot's going on with the defense as well. It's just it seems like they give up some big plays a little bit defensively a lot. Is that just a function of just no pressure up front, or is just bad defensive back play?
The DBs have been an issue for the past couple seasons, and they continue to be an issue even this season. They've had a lack of communication. I think they still are having some communication issues. Last week, I forget his first name because that was the first game that he played in, but his last name was Wild Goose, and he replaced. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm going blank, but I can't remember which DB was hurt, but one of the DBs was hurt. He replaced them, and he got beat a lot. So the DBs are definitely an issue, but the run defense has not been that great either with the Commanders. And what's so weird is they're having a lot of the same issues that they've had over the past at least 3 seasons.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too good. Well, I want to ask as well, any update on Chase Young so far?
No, they really haven't given an update on his injury. I don't think he hasn't been practicing either. But no, we really haven't heard an update on Chase Young as of yet.
Okay, and as far as the Commanders, there's a lot of different things going on. If you had to name one thing that needs to change for them going forward, what thing would you name that needs to get better for them?
Protecting the quarterback. They have to protect the quarterback. He's just in a lot of instances, yes, he is holding on to the ball too long, but then he also doesn't have time to throw. He's running for his life. And I mean, if you're constantly on the ground, it's hard to get a rhythm, an offensive rhythm. So protecting the quarterback is definitely key at this point. Plus, you don't want him to get hurt. We know Carson Wentz is injury prone in general, but you don't want him to get hurt because he's continuously being hit.
Right. It's going to be interesting to watch and see what happens and what develops with that offense and defense of the Washington Commanders. Oh boy.
And I mean, last week the defense did some good things in the first half. I will say that, but the offense wasn't there. And then the defense was on the field too long, so they eventually got tired and it, fell apart.
Well, I guess that's enough Washington Commanders talk, and hopefully it'll get better for them. But we're going to talk about a couple teams they've played so far this year. That would be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Philadelphia Eagles, who they played last weekend, and that didn't go very well for them. But I digress. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's talk about Jacksonville. 2-1, looking good. I mean, went out to Los Angeles and beat the Chargers 38-10. I don't think anyone expected them to beat them that soundly. I expected them to be in the game. I just didn't expect them to beat them that soundly. I mean, I'll ask you this. If I would have told you before the season that the Jaguars in 3 games would be 2-1, leading the AFC South, what would you have told me at that time before the season?
I would have been like, slow down, Mike, slow down. Don't buy into it. But I mean, that's only because you can go off last season. And I do know that Doug Peterson's a good coach. I know that from when he was at Philly. But I thought it would take him a little bit more time to get him to the point that they're at. I mean, there are things that still need to be cleaned up, things they need to work on, like the red zone, scoring in the red zone. They've missed a lot of opportunities in the red zone. But for the most part, he has this team looking like a professional football team. Trevor Lawrence has improved. He's even improved from the game when they played the Commanders because he was a little bit more streaky in that game. Some of his throws were off, missing receivers, but also the receivers weren't helping him a lot that game either. But everybody seemed to improve and are starting to gel. So if this team can continue to play the way they played against the Chargers and even the Colts, I think that they could definitely be a force to be reckoned with. The biggest thing is that they're starting to feel like they can win. And I think that's when they're going to be dangerous, when they really know they can win. Yeah.
So kind of the feelings back when Jalen Ramsey and those guys were out there. Sounded like a little bit of those feelings when they went to the AFC Championship game.
Just a little bit. I'm still slow in my roll. If they beat Philly, then it's like, okay, we can keep talking. But like I said, I'm happy to see that they at least look like a professional football team and that they are competing and that they're confident. But yes, it does have similarities to that year they went to the AFC championship against the Patriots. But I'm still in wait and see mode.
All right. Yeah, I did kind of throw it out there way too early, but a couple guys that are talking about way too early. I mean, James Robinson. I mean, the end of the season last year, the Achilles injury, and then now he comes into this season. Plenty of people. There were people that thought he might not even be the starting running back on this team. And back-to-back games, he's had an explosive run, and he just looks like the guy in that backfield. How important do you think he's going to be as a leader of that running game as the season goes on for Trevor Lawrence in that offense?
Oh, for sure. He's going to definitely continue to be a leader. I mean, he, in my opinion, pre-Urban Meyer era, he showed his significance on that offense and he showed his importance on that offense as well as leadership. But then during the Urban Meyer era, he was more into Carlos Hyde because Carlos Hyde played for him in college. So he was moving away from James Robinson, which made absolutely no sense. So I'm glad to see James Robinson back in the mix. I'm glad to see him having explosive plays. Like you said, with that injury, I'm surprised that he is as healthy as he is, but he's key to that offense.
All right. And then another key to that offense was a guy that plenty of people laughed at this offseason when he got the contract. That would be Mr. Christian Kirk, the wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But he's getting the last laugh right now. Yeah. I mean, honestly, look at him, 18 receptions, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns so far. What was your reaction when they first signed him, and what are your thoughts on him now?
I mean, it was a lot of money, of course, and based on his production in Arizona, I know a lot of people didn't think he deserved that money. But at the same time, I felt like Jacksonville needed weapons. And it looked like, just based on how much they paid him, that they were willing to do whatever they needed to do to get weapons. And he seems to be thriving in Doug Peterson's system in general. They seem to be calling plays that work for him. And biggest thing is he's earning that check. He is earning that check. Like you said, a lot of people laughed at it. But I think the biggest thing and what's most important is that Jacksonville, it was money well spent for Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence needed reliable receivers. He's got that. He's got those weapons that were lacking. So I'm not mad at it because it's working out. If it wasn't working out, that'd be a different story.
Right. Plenty of people would be saying, "Oh, I told you." See? People will be doing that. But
that's how it always goes.
Well, let's flip it over to the other side of the field, the defense. The defense been forcing turnovers, been doing a few things, being active. You got Olaquan they brought over from the Atlanta Falcons. You got Cisco at safety spot. That's a second-year guy. You got Darius Williams and one of the corners from the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams that's out there too. I mean, they've got a lot of different guys. But of course, the main guy that everyone thinks about is Mr. Trayvon Walker. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you this. He doesn't necessarily have the numbers so far, but, tackle for loss. He's had an interception so far. Doesn't have the sacks, but what do you think about him so far and what he's done for that defense?
I like it. I mean, I think with Josh Allen being on that defense and having him and Trayvon Walker, it seems like they're feeding off of each other. I mean, Trayvon Walker is still wreaking havoc on quarterbacks, even though, like you said, he hasn't had many sacks. But I know people question choosing him over Aiden Hutchinson, but I think that he works for what Jacksonville is trying to do. He has a little bit more versatility, in my opinion. So I'm liking what I see so far. I think for a rookie, he's definitely making an instant impact, which you don't always see with rookies.
Right. Now, I've got to ask you, and I know I thought they were going to go Aiden Hutchinson. When it came to the draft, did you really think they were going to draft Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson?
No. I mean, I'm not going to even lie. No. I definitely thought they were going to go Aiden Hutchinson. When they chose Trayvon Walker, I wasn't like, what? Y'all chose Trayvon Walker? But I didn't expect it. I definitely didn't expect it.
Gotcha. I mean, I was in the club of Aiden Hutchinson, but hey, it's working out where it's working out for both of them. So hey,
that's what I was going to say. Both of them are thriving where they are. Aiden Hutchinson definitely gave Carson Wentz that work when they played the Lions. So everybody seems to be in a good situation.
Right. Now, this defense, it's been good, but there's been one spot that I'm just kind of a little curious about. And that would be the defensive backs. I mean, of course, in the Commanders game, they had a little bit of an issue there. Carson Wentz was touching them up a little bit. The second game, not quite so much. Of course, with the Colts, of course, they didn't have very many weapons out there at all. And then against Mike Williams, they go out and they basically kind of lock him down for most of the game. Now, I'm wondering to myself, which one of these is the actual for real Jaguars defensive back crew? I mean, now I know that Shaquille Griffin did not play in one of these games, but which one to you do you think they're the team that showed up against the Commanders, or are they the team that showed up against the Chargers in a 38-10 route?
Honestly, I think they're a little bit of both. To be honest, I think they're going to still have their struggles, but I think they're also going to have those dominating games too. I think it's going to be a little bit of both until they really start to gel. I mean, you're starting to see them come together, but it's still very early in the season. I feel like when we get to that like midpoint, then we'll probably see more of what we saw with the Chargers consistently. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it's still a little bit of both because those red zone struggles are still there. Truth of the matter is they should have, and I'm not saying this because I'm from Jacksonville. I'm saying this because I was at the game and I watched it. They really should have beat the Commanders, but they were in the red zone 3 times. And I want to say only came away with 3 points because, or maybe it was 6, but they didn't get a field goal every red zone try, but they were there 3 times. So imagine if they scored, that would have been 21 points. Against the Chargers, they still have some red zone struggles. I really think once they get that cleaned up, they'll be dangerous as long as everything else stays the same.
All right. Now, we'll say this. If they're counting on Tyson Campbell, I'm not trying to pick on Tyson Campbell, by the way, because I played defensive back. But Tyson Campbell, he's a potential, lockdown corner. Eventually, he could grow into that. But the only thing that hurts him on that is his hands, because he's not necessarily a guy that can catch the football. That kind of concerns me. Shaquille Griffin, I'm pretty sure they were lighting him up after one of the games. I've talked to a few Jacksonville Jaguars fans, and they're saying he's loafing on some defensive assignments, things like that. So that'll be interesting just to watch how that group develops as well. So it'll be interesting there.
Rayshawn Jenkins has been playing pretty well too. Now, I don't think he's going to be lockdown corner like Jalen Ramsey or anything like that, but he's been playing really well for them so far.
Mm-hmm. Got you. Okay. All right. Well, we'll definitely see how that defensive that defensive backfield kind of gets itself together, and if they kind of start to level out with the consistency and see which one they are. They definitely got a big test this week going against Jalen Hurts and the high-powered Eagles offense. I'm just like, this will definitely see where Jacksonville is, especially as a defense.
Yeah. This is going to be a test because, they played the Commanders, and as the game went on, I was like, yeah, Philly is good. They are good right now. Probably the best team in the NFL right now. Because I think, they're definitely better than the Dolphins, in my opinion. Right now.
Right.
So, and I don't know if I even answered. I think I answered your question earlier wrong. I think you asked me about the DBs and were there. My bad, Mike. That was like I couldn't hear, so I thought you said something else.
It's all good. It's all good. Hey,
professional.
It's all good. No worries at all. But hey, I got my answers in terms of trying to find out a little bit more about Jacksonville and my thoughts on them. And it's going to be interesting just to see, can they handle a little bit of prosperity too? Because a lot of those guys have not won. So it'll be interesting to see if they win this game or not. You know, of course, if they're respectable in the game, plenty of people are still going to be talking about them. So it's going to be just interesting to see where they came from, you know, last year to being good and terrible to actually people liking them and people looking at them like, okay, you got to watch out for them Jaguars. So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see. On one hand, I think they're so young that like they're just, I feel like they have that like young excitement. And I don't know. And plus, after the season they had last year, they deserve some good. So I think it was worse than any of us will ever know. But they deserve some good. So like you said, hopefully they can handle the prosperity and Coach Peterson will keep them level-headed.
Well, I know one thing. There will be no urban revivals down there in Jacksonville.
Oh, no, no.
All right, we're going to go on to the last segment of the show. Of course, we're done with all the questions on the Commanders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, we've got a game. We got 5 questions, 2 answers. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready as I'm going to be.
All right, you got to pick one Jacksonville running back. We're going Fred Taylor or Maurice Jones-Drew. Which one are you taking?
Freddie T all day.
Pretty sure he's somewhere here listening like, yeah, she better have said me. I'm just kidding.
We want him in Hall of Fame next. It took Tony Baselli long enough. We want Freddie T next.
Yeah, I definitely think he's his impact is worthy of it. All right, go to Washington, D.C. for a minute. Carson Wentz has 12 interceptions at the end of the season. Would you say he's going to have more than that or less than that?
I'm going to say less.
Okay.
I'm going to say less.
You're hoping for less, though, right?
Haven't been
I'm kidding.
What'd you say?
You're hoping for less, though, right?
I'm definitely hoping for less, so I'm going to go with less.
I mean, he does handle the football a little bit better now in terms of keeping up with it and not turning it over, but he does have those crucial interceptions at the wrong time still. He still hasn't solved that one, but he has kind of solved a little bit of the turnover bug.
Yeah. So hopefully we don't have that issue.
I hear you. Now, of course, I'm going to ask you a personal question.
Okay.
All right. If you had a choice and you got hired by an NFL team, would you rather do PR or be a sideline reporter?
Ooh, that is tough. That is a tough question, Mike. Oh, man.
Bro, like, can I do both?
I know, that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's what I would really try to work out. I try to work out a role where I could do PR and sideline reporting somehow. That's a hard one, Mike. I really can't even pick.
You got to pick one. You got to pick one.
On the team. You know, I'll go with PR because that's my natural gift. And also sideline reporting, I love it and I would love to do that, but there would be more of an expiration on that. Whereas PR, I could be the PR for a team until I'm like 50 if they would keep me. So there's more longevity for me, I think, on the PR side. So that's why I say PR.
Another benefit of being in PR, you don't have to stand out in all kinds of different weather.
That too.
All right. I guess we're gonna go a little bit Miami with this one. Okay, if you were not Miami, just Florida in general, I would say, or it could be California. But anyway, we're gonna go to we're gonna leave in DC on this one.
Okay.
All right. Would you rather vacation and be on a yacht or vacation and be on a beach?
Whew. The beach. I love the beach. I mean, yachts are nice, but I feel like you can only be on a yacht for a day. I wouldn't be on a yacht every day. I could go to the beach and lay on the beach every day.
Okay. All right. All right. Now, of course, I'm going to ask you to choose between the two coverages that you do. Which one would you like to do if you had to choose one and do it, consistently all the time? The only thing you do, football or basketball coverage?
It would be football. I love football. Football is where I started. Plus, the season is shorter. NBA with them 82 games or yeah, I think it's 82. I
Mhm.
just that would be a lot. So I'm gonna go with football though, because like I said, that's my first love. That's where I started. But I just love it. I love it
Okay.
all. But you're making me choose, so so I'll go
uh,
with football.
all right. Well, there we go. There we have it. 5 questions, 2 answers is all wrapped up. And this show is wrapped up. I want to thank you, Carita, for coming on.
For having me.
Uh, yeah, of course, of course. And if you can, give everybody your information about where they can find you, where they can find your website, your work, what all you're doing. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, you can follow me on all social media platforms at Carita Parks. I drop everything I'm doing at that handle. Also, be sure to follow me at Double Take Sports. That's at DBL Take Sports. Also, the website is dbltakesports.com. That's my own brand, and that is where my Wizards and Mystics coverage is. But also, I write about a ton of other sports topics on that website as well. Also have some contributors now, so they're also writing some interesting pieces. So be sure to follow that. And then you can also follow at Parks PR on Instagram and Facebook.
All right. Where can we find Commanders coverage?
Oh, oh my gosh. My Commanders coverage is at the 3-point conversion. That's at 3-point conversion. And also 3pointconversion.com.
I'm
That
gonna
is
tell
my
now.
Commanders coverages.
I think I'm gonna tell. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
They might be watching. Somebody might already be watching and snitching.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank everyone for tuning in. You've been watching and listening to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.